our next guest is also here to talk about IDeAL.
Yes.
Right? Professor Sam Kinyanjui is Director of IDeAL and the Head of Training at Kemri Wellcome Trust Program in Kenya. What is IDeAL, Prof?
Thank you very much, first, for having me here. IDeAL stands for Initiative to Develop African Research Leaders.
Initiative to Develop African Research Leaders.
Yes.
IDeAL.
Yes.
We'll talk about that shortly. Karibu sana. Good to have you back.
Asante.
The last time you were here was, what was this? Was it like, 3 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago, almost.
Wow.
Yeah.
How have you been since that time?
Growing older.
Gracefully. You're aging gracefully. Very good.
But I don't know what he uses. He doesn't grow old at all.
Oh, no. That's genetic.
Yangu ni andani.
Where he comes from, people don't gray very easily. Where I come from, we gray in the beard. But if you look at my hair, there's gray, but it's perhaps a little gentler.
Yeah.
So,
But you know that's wisdom.
I keep being told this. I keep being told this. Now that you're here, when you have a break, you'll have to tell me how you see it, because me, I don't see it.
Where the wisdom comes.
Yes, it must be somewhere resident.
Let me show you how.
Yes.
For example, you have the day's proverb.
I do have the day's proverb.
Exactly.
And our proverbs
And in your wisdom, this week's proverbs are from
the Republic of Tunisia. Yes. We have been looking at countries of the Maghreb. We started off with Morocco, went to the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, now in the Republic of Tunisia. They're a democracy, yes, and they also...
They have people.
They have people, they all have all that, but...
They are a republic.
But they're the people's... They're not the People's Republic, they're just the republic.
Okay.
Tunisia, it is said by others, were what we knew as the Carthaginians. But the late Muammar Gaddafi had a different view. He said, actually, it is the Libyans who are the Carthaginians. In fact, I mentioned in the earlier hour, one of Gaddafi's sons was actually called Hannibal. Yes, who was the son who was known as the man who did wonderful things to elephants across the Alps. Another proverb. Okay. Even if he wears a valuable harness, the donkey does not turn into a horse.
Even if he wears a valuable harness.
A Hannibal harness. Where?
The donkey
does not
become.
It
does not
become
turn a horse into a horse.
Racehorse is racehorse. Donkey
Prof,
is donkey.
what do you think?
No, it's very true. And I think it speaks a bit to a lot of things we see nowadays in this country. And I'm speaking in a bit of coded way, but there are people who imagine that if they can take everything that belongs to the country, that will make them
Horses.
Racehorses. They just remain well-decorated
Mules. Pigs even.
Here we are thinking of horses and donkeys. Now we've been taken to yet another mammal.
Pigs.
Anyway, it's the animal kingdom.
They will not fly.
Mashanga.
Ndio.
Bado atabaki.
Nguruwe ni nguruwe.
Naweka lipstick.
Naweka lipstick.
That's a nice one. The Kemri Wellcome Trust Program in Kenya, we've had these conversations many times before. You do quite a lot in this country in terms of research in the areas, in medical research. You for very many years, you've conducted various, research trials that have led into breakthroughs in the world.
Yes.
Now, we have many researchers, I presume, who are associated with the Kemri Wellcome Trust.
Yeah.
And there are those who have passed through your hands in terms of training. They are not working at Kemri. There are those who have remained at Kemri. There are those who have come from elsewhere into Kemri. When we talk about researchers in medical field, do you have a register of the number? We know, so there's Professor Sam Kinyanjui, we have 3,500 researchers, medical researchers in Kenya.
To be honest, I don't think that we have a very good handle. The Ministry of Education and also the Ministry of Health I suspect you would be able to compile it if you went into, for example, the salary rolls. But as it were, it's hard to have a handle, and even harder to have a handle of the ones who have left the country. And unfortunately, there's quite a lot of them. So every so often when I go for conferences, you will meet someone who will say, oh yeah, I used to be in Kemri, I used to be in Kenyatta University or Nairobi University or wherever else, and has left the country. So that is even a much harder group to get a handle on. Yeah.
Many, quite a number.
Yes.
So if we just don't have a handle on Kenya, then having a handle on Africa surely is the other impossible thing.
Yeah.
Is there a need to have?
No, I think there is a need to have a handle on who we have for a number of reasons. One, you cannot know what to prioritize if you don't have a sense of what the size of your challenge is. And by the challenge here, I mean, if we don't, so for example, we know the ratio of scientists in developed countries, the ratio of scientists to non-scientists. And although there isn't a single given figure that you must attain to, in developed countries, if you take countries like South Korea, Japan, Israel, Finland, you're talking of about 4,000 people per million, 4,000 scientists per million. So essentially, whenever in a group of about 10 people, one of those people will be a scientist. Here we are talking of people who have a PhD, people who have, clear programs of research. It is estimated that a country like Kenya, many of the East African countries, we are at the range of maybe 100 to 200 scientists per million. So, but we don't even have a clear handle on that. And it means that if we are going to say we need to invest, we need to focus or aspire to a certain goal, we almost don't even know where we're starting from. So it's even hard to measure whether we are making progress when we start making progress.
Right.
So I think it's quite important. The second reason is that it helps to know what resources you have, who you can appeal to if there's a need. And say, for example, during COVID, just knowing which institutions had the equipment and the facilities and the system set up to immediately start responding or helping the country respond to COVID was very important.
Yeah.
And a good example is that because Kilifi, the Kemri Wellcome campus in Kilifi was already set up to do really high-level molecular biology, immediately COVID hit, we were among the first, if not the fastest institution to test. And actually there was an ironic story there. Then because we were testing around Kilifi looked like it had if you remember, like it's the place where the epicenter. Yes. It was purely because we were already set up. So knowing what the country's capacity is also very useful in working out how we can respond to health challenges. Knowing the people who are out there, again, third reason, for me, and at least for those of us who are in the capacity building space, is very important so that we're able to engage back these brains. I may not be able to bring them back to Kenya, but if I knew that there is a scientist in Harvard, I can write to them and say, would you mind co-supervising?
Yeah.
Do you know of opportunities where Kenyans can be trained? Can we send our student to your lab to learn technique XYZ. And even if it's not lab, it could be social science. Can you train this person in understanding the principles, theories of social science? So we are able then to, if you like, brain engage. So we may not reverse the brain drain, but at least we can engage them from wherever they may be seated.
Which may even be better, easier, more efficient.
Yeah, more efficient in some cases, because they also have a reason why they are in Europe, wherever, but they also have access to really advanced, cutting-edge science infrastructures and systems, which we should exploit. And that conversation can really only be had or more effectively had when you're talking to a fellow Kenyan.
Yes.
It's easier to appeal to, mtu wa nyumbani angle to it. I'm not saying you can't also talk to non-Kenyans, but there's that extra bit.
Always helps because they've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a handle on the actual researchers, do you have a handle on institutions that are involved in research? Let's just say research in the medical field, whether government funded, whether private funded, whether donor funded. Do we know?
Yeah. So I don't have the numbers, but NACOSTI, which is one of the 3 agencies that was instituted or established through the Science and Innovation Act of 2012, has a responsibility of registering research institutions, and so they would have that data. The other institution that will have that data is Kenya Innovation Agency, again one of the 3. And again, because they have the responsibility of working with different institutions in Kenya to support and promote innovation in those institutions. But I should say this, that even with those institutions, they are not as well resourced as they should be. So, for example, I worked with Kenya some time back to put together what was called the Kenya Innovation Outlook 2020. No, sorry, 2021. And the idea there was to really get a handle on the number of scientists, the institutions, the resourcing, the funding. And I can tell you it was quite difficult because we didn't have sufficient funding. In fact, it was funded by the UK government rather than even the government of Kenya. So I'm sure those agencies would love to get a better handle if they were better resourced, and I would definitely be advocating for them to get more resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now justify why the initiative to develop African research leaders.
Okay. So, as I have said when I started, first let me say, why do you even need scientists? Because there's no point of developing a capacity if it's not necessary. I think I can say this without fear of contradiction. No country really developed and became a competitive economy without the application of science, technology, and innovation. And last week I was in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, what used to be called Saigon before the war. And many of us, the way we think about Vietnam is this place where you can find Rambo running around the street with a machine gun.
Yeah, and people under tunnels.
And people under tunnels on the ground. But Vietnam, through application of science, so they do manufacturing, they manufacture drugs, they manufacture mechanical things like cars and all that, has actually moved up during that period to become the 32nd largest economy in the world. Vietnam is a larger economy than Nigeria. It's a larger economy than the whole of East Africa combined.
Wow.
As our friend would say, think about that. Meditate on that. So you look at Southeast Asia, you look at China. China has become the 2nd largest economy in the world, just very short of the US, simply by the application of, it's not the politics, it is the application of science, technology, and innovation. Today, you go to any part of the world, you will find Chinese technology. And let me explain. There is cheap Chinese technology and there is advanced Chinese technology. Just like in any country, there will be a spectrum of quality.
Yeah.
Those guys are putting people in space.
Yep.
Those guys are, have cars that match European cars. So, tafakari hayo.
They have the longest network of rail.
The fastest, actually.
And the fastest of speed trains in the world.
Yeah, so coming back, I hope I have given examples of why
we need science and technology.
Science, and so then coming back to the numbers I gave, we are very low on number of scientists and innovators. And the result of that is that Africa, in many cases, have to wait for externally developed solutions to our problems. When you look at vaccines, when you look at drugs, when you look at hata hizi simu tuko nazo mfukoni, the externally generated solutions, we are proud of M-Pesa. But M-Pesa actually operates on a platform that had to be developed elsewhere. Without this platform, which is a mobile phone, M-Pesa wouldn't exist. Now, I'm not taking away from the M-Pesa innovation, but I'm saying you need that level of technology to then innovate on top of it. So IDeAL aims to really take talented young Africans, young Kenyans. It used to be only Kenya when we were last, but now we are a big consortium. We include we include Zambia, and we also have partners in Niger, or Niger, as some people would say, and we have also other local partners. And the idea is that we attract young Kenyans to research by providing exposure to cutting-edge research environment, and let me again be clear here, and I was clear even last time, we are not just talking of clinical research, so we are not talking just of lab. We are talking about the whole spectrum of health research. From people who are in the lab studying those molecules and trying to understand the biology of humans, the biology of different parasites, the biology of the insects that carry diseases such as mosquitoes. So we have people on that end. We have people who are trying to understand the drugs and the medicines that we use. These are the people who do what you call clinical trials. If there's a new drug, can we test it and all that? But we also have people who are in the social sciences because we understand there is what you call social determinants of health. These are the social factors that actually impact on health. We also have people who are studying the health system because you have what you call systems determinants of health. For example, if the drugs are not being distributed to hospitals, actually that is a logistics issue.
Yeah,
you need someone who has studied logistics to understand how would it be best. Again, like the way Coca-Cola knows how to get a Coca-Cola to every corner of the world. So you see, that's not a lab scientist. You need someone who will understand why do people refuse, why are people, for example, suspicious of vaccines? We had vaccine hesitancy, as we call it. That again is not a lab scientist. A lab scientist will understand how to make it, but he'll not understand why Muga here is so scared when I say we need to do a second booster. That needs someone who has understood social science and anthropology, understands human behavior, cultural studies, someone who will understand why is it that women are taking up more than men. That's gender studies. So I really wanted to emphasize that health research is broad. A very wide. It's not just someone in a lab holding a petri dish and a test tube. Anyway, coming back. So we want to attract, we give exposure to young Kenyans. We then provide high-quality PhD, master's and PhD training. And by quality, there are a few things that you focus on. The first is mentorship and supervision, really key. And that means that you're looking at people who they themselves have both the will, the desire to develop people. They are not saying, you know me, I'm the professor here, and until I die, we'll not have another professor of this thing. They are saying, I really want to reproduce myself, and in a better way. I want people who will be better than me when I leave. They also have to have the skills and technical knowledge of the area that they are supervising the students on. Sometimes, because of the way the systems are, people are just loaded with the students who are doing courses that even the supervisor barely understands. And I'm saying this with a lot of respect to all my academic counterparts, but I know that pressure is there. I'm not being politically correct. I can see Muga laughing. I genuinely know that there are these challenges. The university will take 20 students and they'll say supervise. And so you have no option. And the third is that the students themselves are immersed in a research setting where there's vibrant research culture. And a culture is more than just we have equipment and we have people, is that there's continuous scientific discourse. For example, the Kemri Wellcome program. And I also want to say today I'm also representing another entity called ALMA, which essentially is, ALMA is based at the Aga Khan and is led by Professor Maina and they are focusing on developing capacity for research in neuroscience in Africa. That's an area we have very little. So coming back, so we are immersing these students in the cutting-edge research environments in Kemri Wellcome, in our partner institution at the Aga Khan Institute of Human Development, where Alma is based, at Oxford, who are our partners, at London School, and all these other partners. And as I was talking about the research culture, and it's where you're having people having continuous engagement. People are not working in silos. So, for example, as I was saying in our program, we have a student will attend at least 3 or 4 meetings in a week. They'll attend their meeting with their supervisor, which you call group meeting. The supervisor will have several people on a weekly basis. They'll attend a departmental meeting, where, again, there'll be presentation and conversation. They will attend a program-wide seminar. They'll then also do what you call a journal club, where you review the most recent publications. Are they right? Are they okay? What is the implication? Can we learn from those and do something else? So that environment. The final one is then, when we have trained them, we support their transition to the next step so that we can retain some of them. Some of them we retain in our institutions. Some of them we retain in Kenya, in Africa. And if we can't do that, we retain them in research that is relevant to Africa. So, for example, someone could be working on malaria, but in a lab in Oxford. Then we still consider that as some form of retention. So, both Alma and IDeAL have this very strong desire to create a critical mass of African research leaders who are both well trained in terms of their technical skills, but also in terms of research culture. And they have good manners. In terms of how we do research.
They've got the passion for it and they want to do it right.
Yes, they want to do it right, and they want to create better duplicates of themselves as they live, so that now you have the next generation of researchers.
Professor Sam Kinyanjui from the Kemri Wellcome Trust is our guest, City.
Professor, you mentioned a certain process we refer to as exposure. Now tell us, walk us through this thing. When you talk about exposure, what is it? How do you go about it? How do you get people to know about it so that hopefully they'll take an interest?
So we have actually almost now 4 schemes that we use to increase exposure of young Kenyans to research. One, we have what we call the school engagement program. This is where we have been working. Initially, we were working with secondary schools. Now we have even extended out to primary schools in Kilifi. Initially, again, because of resources, and also we were starting to develop the scheme. But now we are collaborating with Kemri headquarters to even expand to other parts of the country. And the idea there is to have different activities that brings the students into contact with researchers. And the reason this is quite important is, first, you want to create interest in the children when they're still young. The second one, which comes from an interesting angle. So when we first started, we asked the students to draw a picture of a scientist. And Muga, I give you a guess. What do you think they drew?
Scientist.
Yes.
Someone. So they first of all drew a person. With a lab coat.
Yes, exactly.
And probably with a stethoscope. Yes.
And a test tube. And what gender?
Male.
What race, if I may use that in quote?
White.
Yes.
Musungu.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and kind of middle age to old age, white with hair a bit like Einstein. So you see, it means, so for them, a scientist was this white male lab, old or middle age, holding, a test tube or a stethoscope. And that tells you they did not identify themselves as scientists. And so the first thing is the exposure does is to provide them with an opportunity to meet people who look like them, people who talk like them, people who have the same gender as them, people who, although slightly older than them, in many cases are not that much older than them.
So similar socioeconomic backgrounds.
Similar socioeconomic backgrounds. For example, in Kilifi, we have quite a number of Kilifi originating scientists, Mijikenda scientists, who will then go to these schools, and they first when you just greet
speak in Kigiriama.
You speak in Kigiriama, you know, and they start understanding. I know some people say that's tribal. No, it's not. It's about creating self-identities.
Yes.
So the students looking at this person and saying, he greeted us in our language. So I, too, can become a scientist. So that is the first thing. Then we start exposing them to, for example, coming to our labs. And again, the idea there is for them to aspire to think, wow, this is a place, this exists in Kenya. I would love to work here. Now, as I said, we have social science and other areas, but the lab is normally the most visible, sort of striking science platform, if you like. And so we engage with them. We had a game like I'm a scientist, get me out of here, and where they vote, they ask questions, and the scientist who answers in the best and most understandable way goes to the next round. The others are voted out. And we have supported them with the science congress and those sort of areas. So the next level we have is what we call the School Leavers Attachment Scheme. These are the top students, O-level students in Kilifi, and again, Kilifi primarily because of the resources, would like to expand to more than just Kilifi. And they come spend 2 months with us. And again, they just get exposure to the process of research. Not all of them become researchers, or even necessarily will follow that path, but quite a number of them do change their subject choice so that now they join us and they're interested in research.
In fact, we met one such person when he came to Kilifi.
Yes.
Dr. Sophie Uyoga.
Yeah, people like Sophie Uyoga.
Yes, because when she told us her story, she had heard about it in secondary school.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she can't be alone. There must be very many children.
There are many others
very
like
many.
that.
The thing, why you see me smiling and nodding is because you've done something that we have asked very many people here.
Yeah.
Why don't you begin this exposure as a matter of learning, the learning process in very young children?
Exactly.
Because there are people who are that way inclined.
Yes.
And when they see that opportunity, they will latch onto it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things we've done is taken advantage of VR technology.
Yes.
And we have done a lab tour, a VR lab tour. And that means because now we have quite a number of those sets, we can go to schools and the students take 10 minutes walking around, and it's 3D.
They just wear this thing and it's a virtual reality.
Virtual reality. Right. And they're wowed, but it also gives them a chance to say, this happens in Kenya?
Yeah.
I would love to do this. So those are some of the technologies we are taking advantage of. So then when they're in university also, we have an opportunity for people to come to attachments, the usual industry attachments, but again, immersing them in this very vibrant and dynamic research environment. Post graduation, we have what we call it used to be a graduate internship, but now we co-run it together with Pwani University as a postgraduate diploma in health research methods. And this, we take people who have graduated within the last 2 years. And the idea here is to impart experiential learning. They have been doing a lot of theory, but they haven't really had a chance to do research. And so we take about 25 across the whole spectrum of different research areas I talked about, from lab to maths and modeling and all the way to statistical modeling. People might wonder. That is using mathematics to understand natural phenomena. All the way to people who are looking at health systems. And then they spend 9 months with us, basically doing their own project. And they learn how to troubleshoot. They understand the challenges of doing research.
When you say their own projects, what exactly do you mean? Do you teach them how to write grants?
No. So they will be embedded within a scientist who already has
an existing project or program.
So you have a small sub-project where they will work
within that.
Within that. And the idea is that now they are actually getting hands-on. If it is going to the field to do interviews, they are supported by a more senior researcher, but they are there observing and also doing. If it is working in the lab and running some experiments, they are there being mentored by the other senior people within the lab.
So essentially you have something which is akin to an apprenticeship program.
Exactly.
Where you learn, watch, and put into practice what you learn.
Precisely. And as I said, we've been doing it as Kemri Wellcome. Going forward, the Institute of Health Development at Aga Khan is also going to collaborate with us. So they'll also be taking interns, these PGD students. And the idea is we want to expand it so that if any place which has high quality research environment, a place where they'll get mentorship and supervision. These are not extra hands, so that when they come and you give them this is a learning process. So we want to do that with multiple institutions so that we can expand this number. And I'll tell you why in half a minute. It's because it's been one of the most productive schemes we have ever had in terms of developing research leaders. From 264 that we have done so far, about 60 have already had a PhD and above.
Whoa.
About 160 actually have won international masters and PhD scholarships to date. So basically, if you look at where they have gone, it's been one of the... And again, what has been very interesting is not just that they have learned the technical aspects of research, is that they have developed a sense of self-confidence. I was very proud recently when somebody called me and said to me, we're in this meeting, I am in Mombasa. I didn't realize you in Kilifi could have come. But the reason I'm calling is not because I'm in Mombasa and in Kilifi, because one of your interns presented. I was shocked. It's like a PhD. I've never even seen a PhD student presenting this way. And I was very proud. It's not my intern in the side, it's not my supervisor within my program, but I was proud of what the supervisors have done in mentoring this within a year. And that is something we see all the time. It's that enhancement of self-efficacy, self-confidence.
It's something I have to ask.
Yeah.
With regards to writing grants and bringing in the money.
Yeah.
Akin to this is using resources that are available within the community and ensuring that your research is not just relevant in terms of what is needed, but it also incorporates what is available.
Yes.
Because then that makes the community understand that everything you're doing is within their reach and within their means.
Yes.
And they don't necessarily need a huge external body for these things to be done.
Yes.
Now, how do you walk your students through the process of writing grants, and when do you start?
So, especially when they actually across the whole spectrum of the pipeline, there's different levels of writing skills that we provide and presentation skills. So it's both writing, but also being able to defend what you've written. Because sometimes it's not just writing, it's when you ask now, can you give me in 5 minutes, can you explain what you have written?
Yes.
And so at each stage, there'll be increasingly more advanced writing and grant development skills. So by the time they're finishing their PhD, then we are now really focusing on capacity to write competitive grants. And I'm glad you asked this because that is one of the biggest challenge we have with a lot of our African graduates. I sit on a number of international panels for giving grants, like the Wellcome Trust, the UK Research and Innovations, and different others. And one of the things that we've really struggled is, so on one side, as Africans on those panels, we say we would like to see more Africans receiving grants. We advocate for this. On the other side, you see proposals coming in that are really poor. Let me just be clear. It's not that the people who wrote them are stupid or incapable. It's that they have not been mentored. And you can tell the difference. You can see this comes from an institution where there is mentorship. This comes from an institution where this person was left on their own to waddle in the water, and if they swim out, fine. If they are swallowed by crocodiles, too bad. Yeah.
How many universities do you have a collaborative relationship with?
Actually, we have quite a number. So in Kenya, the ones that we're directly having formal is Strathmore University and Pwani University. Nairobi University, we have quite a collaboration with the Department of Pediatrics. So these are the ones where we kind of have relatively large. But for example, when I look at the number of students we have had now, currently, the largest number of students that we have given studentship in these different schemes I've mentioned is actually from JKUAT. So they are very active in applying. And I should say all these positions are very competitive. For example, for the PGD, we are now in the process of recruiting. We advertised. We got 3,800 applicants for 25 positions. That tells you people are enthusiastic. People want to be part of these things. 3,800.
If we have the manpower, or the woman power, or the human resource, and yet they do not know how to attract money, they lack the skills, we're not doing very well.
Yeah, true.
If we export the human resource who go to study, stay there, and we didn't train them adequately, then it would mean grants that they could write and apply in our country will be in short supply.
Yes.
So that retention that you spoke of, the opportunities, the broad opportunities that exist, is then reduced because it is good that people go out of the country. It is good they acquire new skills. But it is advantageous to us when those skills are
then brought back.
Yes, exactly.
And Muga, you're completely right. That's what gives me dreamless, sleepless
nights.
Sleepless.
No, probably dreamless nights.
Sleepless nights. Because we want to see these people that we've trained, whether it is in Alma, whether it's in IDeAL. We have other also big organizations that are or consortia in Kenya, others like Kata, which is supported based in APHLC, again training a lot of PhDs, and all of us directors of these programs. We are thinking, how do we retain, how do we support people to attract funds? And I can say, to be fair, we have been quite successful in our program. If you came to Kilifi, I use Kilifi synonymously with KWTRP. We do have a campus in Nairobi, a big campus in Nairobi, and a campus in eastern Uganda in Mbale. But if you came to Kemri Wellcome 10, 15 years ago, the majority of big grant holders would have been the expatriate partners.
They were.
Today, if you come to Kemri Wellcome, the majority of big grant holders and the total grant holders are Africans. People who are holding, and I'm talking of grants that are £5 million, £6 million, £8 million. Upwards. And, by today's exchange, you're talking of $1 billion upwards. So we have now people who genuinely are world-renowned as scientific leaders in their area.
But what is of interest, and why I asked about the partners, the universities, locally, our institutions that we refer to as universities don't reflect the same. I say this because I have worked at a university. I've been stationed at the university. And the thing that was conspicuously absent was a culture of research. Conspicuously absent. Now, the last time people who even worked there and who had gone to the level of being professors, probably when they wrote the dissertations for their PhD or their masters, that's when they conducted any sort of research. How does the partnership get this culture so that our universities can actually be what universities are intended to be? Because they're actually not.
No. And you're right. And, sometimes you want to give a fair hearing to both sides. I mean, there are people in the university, obviously, who have no research interests or who have not really developed their research interests. But there are also systemic challenges that universities face. Whether it is, you find that someone who is really good, as soon as they graduate, their PhD, they're sent off to become head of department. They're sent off to become in charge of exams.
So they're doing administrative work.
And it's heavy load. The things that we miss in this country, in fact, a lot of people, even people in university, often don't know what it means, is a position immediately after a PhD called a postdoctoral position. Postdoctoral position is you have a PhD, but you are now doing independent work under the mentorship. So it's still a training position under the mentorship of a more senior person. And what happens is that this is a time you really consolidate your research capacity, your research line, your research area. And then during this period, you are able to develop your grant applications. It's very hard to develop a competitive grant application. You finish your PhD, and immediately now you are in charge of exams for 50,
Let me take you further back, even before we get to the PhD.
Yeah.
Just research in just fundamental research.
Yeah.
So that even as a student, you are actually involved in projects, not necessarily clinical research, but just research projects. So that masters going forward, you already understand the benefit. Because if one's mind isn't geared towards it, the PhD is supposed to, in your mind, get you to another job. So you're quite happy with the job.
Exactly.
And status.
And status. Research dies.
Status, yes.
That process, and if this person goes to the level where now they're principals or the assistant vice chancellors, they are not going to promote research.
No, true.
They don't think that way.
If I was to be radical here, personally I would say, if I was to take a radical position, that we should have research universities. We would rather concentrate. There's no point of putting a bit there, so one microscope there, and one microscope there, and one microscope there, where you don't have a critical mass, you don't have a focus, so that from the word go, you have institutions that, I'm not saying the others shouldn't do research, but there's a focus. We used to have, for example, institutions that were for technology. Egerton, you knew that if you wanted anything agricultural technology, and the people who emerged from those, even today, you can see what they emerged with. Suddenly, and it shouldn't be attacked by people in Egerton.
They're doing catering.
You're doing catering.
and tailoring.
JQuat is the same. You move to everything.
It's true.
And so it is.
Let me ask this question because our time is running short. Somebody has asked, a teenager is saying, Prof, how can one get into a Kemri Wellcome Trust? They're interested in, for example, joining, and they get this runaround and they sort of feel frustrated, like, okay, do I need to know someone?
No, you don't need to know anyone. We advertise on our website. As I said, for example, last time we got 3,800 for about 25 positions. So it follows that it will be very competitive and a lot of people won't get it. But don't feel frustrated. Don't think that it's because maybe you didn't know anyone. Keep trying. Your chance will come.
Very good. Many people have, just posted their comments and saying it's quite refreshing hearing after all the noise and the politics of going on in the country that there are actually people in this country who are working towards solutions. And you're one of them, Prof.
Thank you very much.
And as we've just come out of Shuja, you are a Shuja.
Oh, thank you.
Take that one. Yep. Professor Sam Kinyanjui, the Director of IDeAL and Head of Training at the Kemri Wellcome Trust Program, has been our guest. And this is a refreshing way to end the show today.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.